super comfort, super absorbing, and super strength. Available in small, medium, large, and extra large, regular or pull-ups, and prices as low as $13.95 per packet. And keep the beds from getting soiled with underpads, starting at $9.95 per packet. Also receive the First Lady Ultra Sanitary Napkins in regular, night, and long, only $4.95. Giggles brand of baby diapers and adult diapers and more. Available at the new and improved Eastside Trading Limited at the corner of the Bayfront and Kennedy Avenue, Roseau and Kinfield Industrial Site. Eastside Trading Limited, making a difference for you.
Good afternoon. This is the midday news for today, Thursday, May 2nd, 2024.
Where
I am Richie Farrell. Here are the headlines.
and what
Pope Francis has designated Bahamian
the
Reverend Father Kendrick Forbes
DA
from the Archdiocese of Nassau as the new bishop of the Diocese of Roseau in Dominica. Finance Minister Camilo Gonzalez claims the $15 million budget to renovate St. Vincent's Arnos Vale Cricket Ground stadium lights and display screen may be over budget, but
happened.
it is nowhere near US $50 million.
Q95,
And
a big station.
Russians flock to see captured Western tanks and military hardware on display in Moscow's Victory Park, a giant memorial complex dedicated to the Soviet Union's defeat of Nazi Germany. The news brought to you with the very kind compliments of Courts Dominica Limited. More details
As it happens,
after this.
it happens wherever it happens. Local, regional, and global.
Vision is our mission at Quartz Optical. Get 30% off frames and lenses, plus free eye test for all throughout Healthy Vision Month. Get that frame today and pay later with Quartz Ready Finance. Book your free eye examination appointment online today on www.quartzoptical.com. Your sight is our mission. Only at Quartz Optical. Value you can see. Special conditions apply.
All right, welcome back. Pope Francis has named the Bahamian Reverend Father Kendrick Forbes from the Archdiocese of Nassau as the new bishop of the Diocese of Roseau in Dominica. Born on August 20th, 1975 in Nassau, Bahamas, Reverend Kendrick Forbes attended primary school at Clarencetown All-Age School and secondary school at NGM Major High School in Long Island before pursuing his priestly training in Indiana, United States. At St. Menrad College Seminary, he completed his initial studies, earning a bachelor's degree in history. He furthered his education at the St. Menrad School of Theology, obtaining a Master of Divinity and a Master of Theology. Additionally, he earned a licentiate in canon law from the Catholic University of America and was ordained as a priest in Nassau on June 1st, 2002. The announcement of his appointment was made public at the Vatican on Thursday, May 2nd, 2024 at noon Italian time. As per regulations, the bishop-elect has up to 3 months to prepare for his episcopal ordination, with the date to be announced in due course. The Dominica Association of Teachers, DAT, has announced the schedule of its Spelling Bee competition, which kicked off on Tuesday, April 30th, 2024. On Tuesday, May 7th, the Eastern District will convene at the Mont Jean Primary for their own competition, featuring schools such as the Casa Bruce Primary, Lighthouse Christian Academy, Grand Fort Primary, the Dailies Primary, and the Mont Jean Primary. Following this, the Northern District will host its competition at the Portsmouth Library. Schools participating include Woodford Hill Primary, Wills Strathmore Stevens Primary, Ben's Primary, the Savonpie Primary School, Penville Primary, Collyho Primary School, the Wesley Primary School, and the Roosevelt Douglas Primary School. The school with the highest combined score will advance to the finals scheduled for Thursday, May 30th, 2024 at the Public Service Union building. Additionally, the top scoring student from each district will be honored. The secondary schools competition will also take place on the same day.
At the end of the first two DAT district spelling bee competitions for primary schools, the winners were as follows. The Western District. In the first place was the St. Mary's Primary School, represented by Omar Grell and Calais Harris. And in second place was the Goodwill Primary School, represented by Tyrell Williams and Kizak Benjamin. Caleb George of the Coolibisri Primary School was adjudged best speller of the district. In the Southern District, the winner was the Newton Primary School, represented by Keziah Winston and Janaya Moody. And in second place was the Girardel Primary School, represented by Jihazi Bell and Dante Latai, with the best speller being Keziah Winston of the Newton Primary School.
That was President of the Dominica Association of Teachers, Mervyn Alexander. Jungle Bay Resort and Spa hotelier Samuel Raphael on Wednesday clarified the rationale behind hosting the Economic Revival Summit organized by the United Workers' Party and the Electoral Reform Coalition, scheduled for June of this year. He expressed his belief that the event is a commendable initiative, advocating for the prioritization of national development over political affiliations. Raphael emphasized that the decision to host the summit at Jungle Bay Resort is not politically motivated, but rather stems from the desire to maintain a separate between business and politics. He reiterated that the resort welcomes everyone, irrespective of their political backgrounds.
I don't know exactly where the idea of this summit came from, but the political leader reached out to me, and Thompson Fontaine, I know him very well. I know Ronald Charles. I know many people, and we maintain good relations. I knew Thompson way before he got into politics, so our friendship goes beyond that. And he reached out to me and he told me he was interested in doing something mainly on tourism and agriculture, and asked me if I would be willing to, make some contribution. I thought it was a very good idea, and putting the politics aside, because I think things like national development sometimes, especially when it's not in the political season, we need to put the politics aside. I thought that he and his party were seeking to manage the affairs of the country, including my business, and our business. And it would be very important to engage them in the conversation, because you never know, elections, that's a coin toss. You may think a side will win, or you may think another side, but you never know. And UWP haven't been in office for almost a quarter of a century, and the world has changed significantly. And so I thought it would be good if I were to make a contribution to the discussion, so that they could ventilate my ideas and the other people's thoughts. And so that's how it first started, and then eventually asked me if I would consider allowing the use of Jungle Bay for the opening reception. And I thought, how do I allow Jungle Bays for everybody? It's a public place, as long as you're not coming to commit crime, regardless whether it's religious or any political or sports or whatever. It's open. So I said, of course. But of course, it's a business and I'm not running it. So I referred him to my manager. And the only thing I told her is, listen, these guys are planning to do something that I think is good for Dominica. So try to give them as favorable a rate as possible.
Raphael emphasized that Dominicans should rally behind the Economic Revival Summit, asserting that if it benefits the United Workers' Party and Dominica as a whole, it is a positive endeavor. He lamented the prolonged division among Dominicans, urging unity to collectively address the nation's challenges.
I heard the summit is going to be at Jungle Bay. Initially, I thought it was just the dinner, and they've been dealing directly with the manager, the general manager, and the team, and that is my involvement with the summit. Unfortunately, the days that they selected, I had scheduled to be off island for a family, and so I can't miss maybe my kids, but not my grand. So I won't be able to be there on the 5th and the 6th. but I promise to stick around on the 4th to make sure everything goes smoothly, and then I'm taking off. And I think it would be a fantastic event. Just talking to him about it. I haven't talked to the other people, and certainly Severin McKenzie, who, by the way, is Jungle Bay's architect, and I have a close relationship with Severin as my friend, and hearing their ideas and so on. I think it's something that's very good for Dominica and have the potential to really, come up with some new and interesting things. They talk about tying in Dominicans that are abroad, that have actually done things instead of people just talking, people with experience, proven track records, coming together and looking at the island, giving it a fresh look and coming up with some recommendations. I think it's a fantastic idea. Travel in the morning on the 5th, early morning, so I will not be able to be there. I wish I was, because I would certainly have made a contribution there as it relates to. I think, first of all, I think they should be invited, and that's what Thompson, I think, has said. And if they're invited from the Prime Minister down, I think people should come together. And, during the political season, the British call it the silly season. 100 days, you wrestle and you fight. And so, and after that, we need to come together and try to build the country. We spend too much of our energy aiming at each other as opposed to the problems that we need to solve.
Proprietor of Jungle Bay Resort and Spa, Samuel Raphael. This is Q95 News. Former president of the Dominica Business Forum, architect and member of the Electoral Reform Coalition, Severin McKenzie, claims all reasonable consultations and negotiations have been exhausted in Dominica. Speaking on Q95 FM radio on Monday, Severin McKenzie recalled his interactions with the DLP cabinet's then-hired sole electoral consultant, Sir Dennis Byron, who engaged in consultations organized by the DBF under the then leadership of Mr. McKenzie about electoral reform in Dominica and the necessary recommendations to even the political playing field for all political parties and prevent corruption from occurring during elections. This as Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit in March 2024 promised the nation that his administration would make public the select recommendations from Sir Dennis Byron's concluded electoral reform study in the second week of April 2024. Mr. McKenzie says it is now May 2nd, 2024, and the nation has not seen or received this proposed document from the government. This has left many Dominicans disappointed, including members of the ERC.
I think it has to start more with getting people with disabilities involved in a lot of the decision making.
We apologize for the error in that insert. In other news, speaking to Q95 News recently on the significance of the ways society can incorporate inclusivity and consideration for persons living with disabilities, CEO of Teas and Things and Public Relations Officer of the St. Kitts and Nevis Association of Persons with Disabilities, SKNAPD, Anthony Mills, is encouraging policymakers and leaders in government and non-governmental organizations to get advocates and skilled people with disabilities involved in decision-making. Mills referenced a current scenario. He said the lack of effort by leaders to consult this community to determine and decide the building codes to promote ease of access for persons with disabilities living in St. Kitts and Nevis and across the region is something that needs to change.
I think it has to start more with getting people with disabilities involved in a lot of the decision-making process. What we have found is that, a lot of stuff is being done for people with disabilities without including us. And then even with the best of intentions, a lot of it don't work the way it was designed to work, because nobody took the time to consult with the people with disabilities. And I think that has become a problem, not just here in St. Kitts and Nevis, but across the region, where people with disabilities are not consulted. And I see it a lot of in my work in terms of trying to get the building codes normalized across St. Kitts and Nevis and across the region, where we look and we see things like ramps being put in, but because nobody consulted, they are ill-designed, and some of them are even unusable, So, and then we look at things like the education system, where people with disabilities are not consulted. And even though there's a lot of experts with disabilities who could be consulted.
Anthony Mills exclaims, there must be no work or project done for the disabled community without the inclusion of persons with disabilities skilled in the area of expertise. Mr. Mills will form part of the Circle of Friends delegation at the upcoming SEEDS Disabilities Forum from May 27th to the 30th, 2024 in Antigua and Barbuda.
And so sometimes it don't work properly. So I think it has to start with the inclusion of people with disabilities in the decision-making process. It works better when we can live our mantra about nothing about us without us, because that's what we firmly believe, that for it to work for us, we have to be involved. And as the sooner we can get civil society to realize that involving us would make things work better, then I think it will make our path easy and the job that we do as advocates easier.
CEO of Teas and Tings and Public Relations Officer of the St. Kitts and Nevis Associations of Persons with Disabilities, Mr. Anthony Mills. DOWASCO will soon be acquiring insurance for its major assets, such as the water intakes, pipelines, which are close to rivers and water tanks. DOWASCO lost insurance for these assets back in 2015. This was as a result of large insurance payouts in the region and locally to utility companies after natural disasters in recent times. Since then, many of the insurance companies unanimously decided not to insure certain assets of utility companies in the Caribbean region. General Manager of DOWASCO, Bernard Etinoff, told the media at the Financial Center conference room that post-Tropical Storm Erica in 2015, no insurance company, whether regional or local, took up DOWASCO's request to insure its pipeline assets. Mr. Etinoff assures the nation that the surplus from this increase, that is the water guarantee charge, will be utilized to source insurance for DOWASCO's pipeline assets.
It provides also for DOWASCO to take out insurance for its major assets that are uninsured at this point in time. I can tell you in 2015, for Tropical Storm Erica, we had no insurance on these major assets. We had insurance on vehicles, on buildings, on equipment, and so on. But there are certain categories of assets, the water intakes, the pipelines close to the rivers, those are uninsured. Local insurance companies will not provide insurance for those assets. We did get in 2015 following Tropical Storm America, but as a result of the payout that insurance companies had to do in 2017 after Maria, no insurance company, not here, not in the region, will touch any assets such as water intakes, water tanks.
The general manager revealed further that DOWASCO found one financial institution, that is the Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Facility, CCRIF, which is willing to provide insurance at a premium of US $1.2 million initially. However, negotiations were held involving DOWASCO officials, CCRIF, and other organizations like the World Bank and the United Kingdom government to subsidize the premium charge by as much as 60 to 70%.
There is a company, however, the Caribbean Catastrophic Risk Insurance, parametric insurance basically. There is an arm of this insurance now that is aimed at providing coverage to water utilities, well, the Caribbean Water Utilities Insurance Company, special portfolio, which will provide insurance for those kinds of assets. But the initial premium for the WASCO to participate in that, $1.2 million US. Those premium. It is recognized that it's very, very high. And, if you're left alone, we couldn't find $3.8 million to pay insurance. On top of what we pay now, about $700,000 a year in insurances, going to pay another $1.2 million, $3.8 million EC dollars. That was impossible for us to do. So the proposals of this insurance company has also sought assistance from the UK and so forth, and the World Bank, the Inter-American Development Bank, and given the importance of this insurance, we say, look, the utilities need that. You cannot charge the people for that. So they have decided to subsidize that insurance for significantly. Final thing is being worked on, but we may pay less than 50%
of that cost to get our assets insured, starting from June of this year. So we had to something had to be factored into as well in the shortfall to take care of these kinds of costs to ensure that the utility moves forward in a much more resilient fashion, and that every Dominican will be happier after a hurricane, after a storm, after disaster, water could be restored quicker.
General Manager of Dowasco, Bernard Etinoff. You're tuned in with Q95 News. Opposition Senator Delbert Paris has raised concerns over the current state of affairs in Dominica, highlighting the ongoing marginalization and disenfranchisement of local and indigenous talents. He warns that if this trend persists, these talents will be unable to fully capitalize on the country's economic prosperity. Paris's comments come as he advocated for mandatory local participation in developmental projects on the island.
Mr. Speaker, I want to add one recommendation to the list of recommendations, and that is in the area of mandating sustainable and meaningful local participation, ensuring that there's a reasonable transfer of information and technology, a level of participation that would allow our locals to build capacity and to promote an equitable distribution of wealth. Now, somebody might ask why, but Mr. Speaker, it's up here. But for those who have a difficulty understanding why that is important, allow me to elaborate, paint a picture for you. As one I'm sure you would understand and appreciate, Mr. Speaker, because after all, this is your... Mr. Speaker, the loans that we're taking currently will be repaid by the children of Dominican truck drivers, plumbers, masons, carpenters, bus drivers, shopkeepers, vendors, draftsmen, engineers, architects, Dominican contractors. Mr. Speaker, if the environment now continues to be one where our local and indigenous talent continues to be marginalized and disenfranchised, our local talent won't be able to enjoy the level of wealth transfer that is currently happening in Dominica on some of our largest capital projects. And what does that result in? It results in a situation where these local contract artists, they won't be able to enjoy the wealth transfer that will allow them to do simple things, Mr. Speaker, like buying land, buying shares in Domlet, maybe shares, if it ever becomes available, in the Dominica Geothermal Development Company.
Paris expanded on his remarks and asserted that the very individuals who voted the current DLP administration into power are now being neglected, particularly as the government secures loans for the geothermal project.
Land and assets that will help them to create generational wealth that they will pass down to their children, who will become contributing citizens to this country. Contributing citizens in what way? Paying taxes. Taxes that we're going to use to repay these loans. As favorable as they are, they must be repaid. And when these loans are getting repaid, by that time, a lot of us won't be here. Mr. Speaker, if we continue, the same people that single-handedly, or maybe they join hands, and put this government in power, right? And the minister mentioned how they have done it repeatedly. They are repeatedly being asked to fend for themselves. Mr. Speaker, the reason it is a recommendation, the relevance of this, and I want you to get this. The recommendation is for us to take the opportunity in these loan agreements, in these funding arrangements, to ensure that all locals can participate in a way that allows them and their children later on to absorb and pay these loans.
Opposition Senator Delbert Paris. In other news, Minister of Finance Camilo Gonzalez told the St. Vincent Times on Tuesday that while the cost to renovate the Arnos Vale cricket grounds may be slightly over budget, it is nowhere near US $50 million. There was much concern following the announcement by the head of the LOC, Mike Findlay, on Monday that the budget was about USD $50 million. However, Findlay told the St. Vincent Times on Tuesday that this was in fact an error on his part. According to Mr. Gonzalez, Parliament approved a budget totaling $35 million. The $35 million was split between the 2023 allocation and a special warrant in the budget for this year of about $15 million. Open quote, "It is true to say that we might be slightly over budget, but the latest numbers that I have seen are about $37 to $38 million. Now, if you tell me that we have some outstanding bills totaling up to $40 million, I'll agree. However, the numbers we were working with are approximately $38 million, end quote." This is Q95 News. Captured Western military hardware has been on display in Moscow's Victory Park which is a giant memorial complex dedicated to the Soviet Union's defeat of Nazi Germany. Swathies of Russians attended the exhibition to see the war trophies. The BBC's Russia editor Steve Rosenberg went to take a look and explained what Russia may be trying to achieve through this event.
This is Western military hardware that Russia has captured in Ukraine. And today the Russian military is putting its war trophies on display and letting the Russian public in to take a look. So, for example, there is this British Army Husky tactical support vehicle. As you can see, its windscreen has been shot up. And just across the way, there are tanks as well. There's a German tank, a Leopard tank, and an American Abrams. As you can see, the place is absolutely packed. And all of this hardware clearly making an impression on the Russian public.
Потрясающе, даже вот, как говорится, челюсть упала. Неужели наши могли все это взять трофеи?
So why has all of this been put on display? Well, I think the authorities here had two main aims. The first is to reinforce the Kremlin's narrative that in Ukraine, NATO and the West in general is waging a war against Russia, even though in reality it was Russia that launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. But there is also a big element of gloating here. The Russians are increasingly confident about the way the war is going in Ukraine, and their main message is written on a sign over there, and it reads, "Our victory is inevitable."
And that was BBC's Russia editor Steve Rosenberg explaining the swaves of Russians who attended the exhibition to see these war trophies. That is the captured Western military hardware on display in Moscow there. And that's our midday news. Here's a recap of our headlines. Pope Francis has designated Bahamian Reverend Father Kendrick Forbes
When it happens,
from the Archdiocese of Nassau
local, regional,
as the new bishop of the Diocese of Roseau in Dominica.
station,
Finance Minister Camilo Gonzalez claims
Right on.
the $15 million budget to renovate St. Vincent's Arnos Vale Cricket Ground Stadium lights and display screen may be over budget, but it is nowhere near US $50 million.
huge,
And Russians flock to see captured Western tanks and military hardware on display in Moscow's Victory Park,
global,
a giant memorial complex dedicated to the Soviet Union's defeat of Nazi Germany.
right on cue.
The news brought to you with the very kind compliments of Quartz Dominica Limited. The weather update comes up after this.
Vision is our mission at Quartz Optical. Get 30% off frames and lenses, plus free eye test for all throughout Healthy Vision Month. Get that frame today and pay later with Quartz Ready Finance. Book your free eye examination appointment online today on www.quartzoptical.com. Your sight is our mission. Only at Quartz Optical. Value you can see. Special conditions apply.
Time is brought to you by NCC Limited. Already have a mortgage? Don't leave your pocket empty. There is life beyond the mortgage with your community financial partner,
And now it's time for the weather report for today, valid from 12 p.m. The winds are moving east-southeasterly to east at 15 to 30 kilometers per hour. Sea conditions are slight to moderate in open water. The waves are peaking 1 to 2 meters, 3 to 7 feet. There is a high surf advisory in effect for Dominica. The sunrise was at 5:41 a.m. The sunset will be at 6:24 p.m. Low tide 3:57 a.m. and 5:10 p.m. and the high tide 10:18 a.m. and 11:41 p.m. The forecast for this afternoon and tonight: mostly cloudy with some scattered showers. The synopsis: unstable conditions will be affecting Dominica. Here's the weather outlook for Dominica and the Lesser Antilles, again valid from 12 p.m. today, May 2nd, 2024. Moisture and instability associated with a weak low-level trough can be expected to generate increased cloudiness with some scattered showers during the next 24 hours. Slight to moderate seas can be expected in open water with northerly swells peaking near 7 feet. Our high surf advisory is in effect for areas along the northern and western coasts. Small craft operators and sea bathers are advised to be on the alert and to exercise some caution. And that's the weather report for this afternoon. Stay tuned for your community notices and announcements.
Not be afraid of what the future brings. This is only the start of the trans revolution.
Thank you so much for staying with us. At this time, we have one deaf announcement. It is with profound sadness we announce the death of Mr. Paul Moffett Phillip, also known as Big Moff, age 60 years of Wesley, who died on Friday, April 12, 2024, at the Dominica China Friendship Hospital. Left to mourn is his wife, Lena Phillip, his children, Donna Lang, Latoya Foster, Chanel, Shannon, and Rudolph Phillip. Grandchildren, Michelle, Janima, Mikel, Amara, and Keziah. He leaves to mourn siblings, Filene, Debbie, Jolina, Sandra, Ingrid, Angela, Naomi, Jareth, Bill, Harrison, Bradley, Clyde, Pemberton, Cadman, and Joey. He leaves to mourn his aunts, Rubina St. John, Vera, Sylviane, Flora, and Monica. Sisters-in-law, Rose, Celia, Prudence, Eutha, and Jas. Brothers-in-law, Cornelius, Jim, and Orbit. Sons-in-law, Foster and Len. Nieces, including Bianca, Wendy, Geraldine, Tia, Brielle, Karina, Janila, Keto, Ernell, and Pinky. He leaves to mourn nephews, including Cornell, Cardinal, Jamal, Kendall, Ronald, J.R., Kayan, Kadeen, Marvin, and Jahil. Cousins including Reverend and Mrs. Carlotta Dodds, Jenkins, Jan, Miss T and family, Peaky, Merlin, Rose Fern, Emil, Emilia, Reen, Brond, Wimpy, Shania, Bernalyn, Calbert, Laverne, Sheena, and Fortune. Close friends, Dr. Frederick, Mrs. Cecilia Kelsick, Veron, Mr. and Mrs. Jerry Basil and family, Ida, Mr. Ezekiel, Basil, Elwood, Eleonora, Mr. and Mrs. Julian Jeremy, Mr. and Mrs. Yvonne Grant and family, Happy Carissa, Beben, Franklin, Zaki, Mr. and Mrs. Ronald Edwards. Rachel, Rick, Joseph, Rosie, Ambo, Aisha, Indy, the Robin sisters, and others whose names are too numerous to mention. The Philip, Archer, and Dodds families, the Ebenezer Church family, and the community of Wesley. The body of the late Mr. Paul Moffett Phillip, also known as Big Muff, will be transported from Lyndhurst Funeral Home for viewing at 2 p.m. on Saturday, May 4th, 2024, at the Wesley Ebenezer Methodist Church. Funeral service begins at 3 p.m. and is followed by interment at the Wesley Methodist Cemetery. Q95 News extends sincere condolences to the family of the late Mr. Paul Moffett Phillip, also known as Big Muff. That concludes our announcements for this afternoon. I've been your presenter, Richie Farrell, with the Q95 News team, wishing you a pleasant afternoon.